All right, so all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba. That's how you want to enjoy this Super Wild Card weekend. Go to Sedano's or Winn-Dixie, Presidente, Fresco y Mas. Always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Our pal, of course, is CBS Sports Fantasy Football expert, Jamey Eisenberg, joining us here. He joins us every Thursday, except when I'm away skiing, because the ZASLOW family were a big skiing family last week. And look, we'll still get your advice on Super Wildcard Weekend, because now I'm not a big daily fantasy football player, but daily fantasy football is still in full swing, especially where we have 6 games this weekend, right?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. First off, good to talk to you. I'm glad the trip went well, and that you're back without any skiing accidents. That's always good. Yes, daily fantasy. There's also playoff challenge leagues, so there's ways to still enjoy your fantasy fix or get your fantasy fix throughout the postseason. So there are definitely places to do that. But yeah, for daily on FanDuel and DraftKings, this is the fun of daily. You get to set any lineup you want with any players that you want within the salary cap constraints. So how you fit your lineups in. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to go about it. There's some great matchups. Love the setup for Joe Flacco, for example, against the Texans. You have the rivalry game between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. Both those quarterbacks have the chance to play well, so we can get into some of those matchups. But yeah, it's a fun way to still enjoy your setting your fantasy lineup, checking scores, and hopefully making some money as well.
Yeah, so we'll get to the games in a moment here, but I want to get your thoughts on a few of the big stories. First, though, we'll start with the Dolphins from this past weekend. Super disappointing game. What's your view on Tua right now?
He's obviously struggling a little bit, especially in some of these big moments. You have to look at the quarterback and say, why is he not getting the job done? And you can certainly point to Tyreek being banged up over the last month, Jalen Waddle being banged up over the last month, the offensive line letting him down. And let's be fair, the run game has been fantastic for Miami all season long. So that's taken away some of the production for Tua. And I don't think he necessarily gets credit for how good the run game has been and what he's been able to accomplish in helping the run game by the threat of the passing game. So you would like to see him come through in a big moment. The Dallas game was certainly a start. You thought, okay, maybe they can beat Buffalo. The Tennessee game, I think everybody's going to look at and say what a huge letdown that was, because that, really essentially cost them the home field opportunity and to be the 2 seed, how that loss, impacted their team overall. But they're so beat up defensively. There's a lot placed on Tua, a lot placed on the offense. He's got to show, though, if he's going to be a top tier elite level quarterback, and he definitely has the potential to get there. We've seen it. But he's got to do it in some of the bigger spots. And so going into Kansas City, going into that environment where it's going to be unbelievably cold and just a miserable situation, can he come out with a win? And if he does, the perception of Tua will definitely change. Whatever happens after that game, we'll see. But if he can get a win in Kansas City against a team that they already lost to in Germany, would go a long way to helping Tua's resume and probably reputation.
Like, they're going to pay him this offseason, right? Because going into this year, the whole question was, well, there are 2 questions. The first question would have been, do we believe this player is good enough to be a franchise quarterback? And statistically, I think he has shown that. But maybe even the more important question was, can he stay healthy? He played every single snap unless the game was a blowout and the coach pulled him. Played every single snap, made every start. So he passed that test with flying colors. They have to pay him, right?
100%. You look around the league and you see some of the quarterback situations that teams are dealing with, and you can point to and say, okay, the Texans got it right with their rookie quarterback, but the Panthers failed. So going into the draft, is that the way you want to sort of put your franchise in? And we know to get to one of those top tier quarterbacks, you either got to mortgage everything and trade away a lot of picks to move up, like the Chiefs did once upon a time, or the Texans did to get Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes respectively, or you got to hit in free agency, and we know the free agent quarterbacks just usually are not there. And so at this point, you sort of make your bed with Tua and hope, okay, can he take that next step? And that, I think, falls on Mike McDaniel. It falls on, I think, getting, some more help up front from an offensive line perspective, because we know that unit's been really banged up throughout the course of the season. But it's also on Tua, and so does he deserve the mega deal, like the Patrick Mahomes type of deal, or is it more along the lines of a Jordan Love type of deal, and make it a little bit more team friendly where he has the opportunity to still get another big contract after that? I think that's probably the route that the Dolphins would love to go. But Tua, I'm sure, is going to command a high price tag. So you hope they meet in the middle. You hope it's not a long, drawn-out process like what happened with the Ravens over a 2-year, situation. But he definitely has the ability to be a franchise quarterback. Like you said, he's proven it. He passed the big test this year of staying healthy. So The injury concern should hopefully be a minor concern at this point, if at all. And again, just, take that next step. And we're going to find out. Look, Tyreek Hill doesn't have much longer in the league. He's already turning 30, so he's talked about, whether he sticks to his timeline or not, playing only a couple more seasons. He said that prior to this year. Jalen Waddle, I'm sure, is in for the long haul. They won't let him go. So does he have the ability to be that type of elite level quarterback without one of the best playmakers that we've seen in NFL history? That's the next step for Tua. But again, got to win some of these games. So however this season ends, that's the priority next year, is taking the next step and becoming a team that can compete for not only just getting to the playoffs, not only just trying to win a division, but to actually win a division and potentially be one of the legit Super Bowl contenders.
Is the season a success if they win this weekend? Is it a failure if they don't?
Probably yes to both. I think if they can win in Kansas City, have the opportunity to go into Baltimore after that, I think that's the next game if they win. Then yes, you've gone into the defending Super Bowl champions' house and beat them, knocked off Patrick Mahomes, in a weather environment that Tua has not had a lot of success in. Not that he's played a lot of those games, but not had a lot of success in. And so then you look at it and say, okay, we didn't win a division. It was a little bit of a failure toward the end of the season, how, the majority of the year had played out, that we were in the driver's seat ahead of Buffalo from Miami's perspective. But to go into Kansas City and win at least one playoff game, I think you say, okay, we took a step, not the steps that we wanted to take. But yes, I think you look at it as probably more of a success than a failure. Lose this game, yeah, to be one and done in the playoffs 2 years in a row, not exactly the best, look for what you're hoping to get out of not only just Mike McDaniel, but Tua and the whole team.
The cheapest ticket in the league this weekend to get to one of these games is Kansas City. It's $80 right now on the secondary market. We all know why that's the case. The weather is going to be possibly unbearable.
Yep.
I've never been to a cold weather football game. Never, ever. I've only been to one Dolphins game on the road. It was Jacksonville, so it was not cold. Have you ever been to a cold weather game?
I've never. It's been a long time since I've gone anywhere to a football game, let alone as a fan. Usually when I go, I'm going as a member of the media. But I will say the coldest I've ever been in an NFL stadium, and it was about 30 seconds. It was when I covered the Patriots Eagles Super Bowl in Minnesota, and the walk from the security tent to the stadium was a wind tunnel, because it was one of those things where the door opens and immediately there's air seals closed, and you had to take off everything to go through security. So you're coming out of that and there's a million people behind you, so you're trying to just put on your jacket as you're walking, and the wind just hit me, went right through me. My bones were cold immediately, just absolute miserable. And I couldn't imagine dealing with that on a daily basis. Like, kudos to those
just
people
standing there for 4 hours, just bearing it. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. It's like we had this conversation last week. If somebody gave you a free ticket to Jets Patriots, in Foxborough, would you go? And no chance. No chance.
No. And I think Dolphin fans, if you've ever considered going on the road for a playoff game, this really is the weekend to do it, because it's the most affordable it's ever going to be. But you got to ask yourself, can you bear it? And I would not be able to bear it. Give me some Saban, Belichick. That's what the last 24 hours have been for us. Who had the better coaching career?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm gonna say Belichick, just because of what he accomplished at the highest level. Saban was obviously amazing. You could say that these are two coaches on the Mount Rushmore of football coaches, whatever level you want to put it at. They were clearly amazing. It's really, I think, the tougher question is, who's the harder one to succeed, because of what you're stepping into, knowing the competitive scenarios of both of them. But I think what Belichick accomplished.
I think Saban's harder to succeed.
100%, just because the expectations are so high. You lose 2 games to Alabama, you're probably getting, real estate signs on your lawn. You make the playoffs for the Patriots. It's a successful season at this point, just what they've been used to. But for Belichick to stay at an NFL franchise for 24 years, to, be on the doorstep of breaking one of the, I think what a lot of people thought an unbreakable record of Don Shula, really sucks, for Patriots fans that he's not going to do it if he does get the chance to do it as a member of the Patriots organization. But look, 2 guys that have had, just the ultimate success at their respective professions. I saw somebody joke that the reason Saban stepped down was because he knew Belichick was stepping down, and he's going to be his defensive coordinator at his next stop to, recreate what they did in Cleveland, which would be a fun story if it ever happened. But look, they're amazing, and let's not discount Pete Carroll. He was a yard away from doing something that so few coaches in NFL history have done, is win 2 Super Bowls, and for him to have won a Super Bowl, won a national championship. If he had gotten that second one, he's in the conversation to be one of the greatest coaches of all time if he's not already.
What's that list like? I mean, Jimmy Johnson did it.
Tom Coughlin has done it. Parcells did it with the Giants, did not do it with the Patriots. So
no. I'm talking about what's the list like? National championship and Super Bowl.
Oh, national championship and Super Bowl.
So Jimmy did it.
Jimmy did it.
Obviously Pete Carroll. Like, who else is that list?
That might be it.
Did Switzer win at in college?
He had to have won at Oklahoma.
Yeah, that could be is that the list?
That might be it. Yeah.
Wow, that's very impressive. Were you still covering the Dolphins when Saban was here?
Yes. It was when I started at CBS, but I would go down quite a bit. When I first started at CBS, I was going to Dolphins practice quite regularly.
Did you have any fun experiences with him?
No, I wasn't around enough to get a lot of the tongue lashing from that he gave some of the other media members, but I certainly saw the difference, because when I was covering the team, it was the Wanstead era, and how relaxed that was. He was, Dave was great with the media. And then, Nick to come in and sort of, be a much different perspective on things. So it was definitely like, you gotta, be careful with some of the questions you ask, because you didn't want to get, eviscerated, publicly. So nothing bad from Saban there. No.
I mean, I remember because back then I used to go to, cover the Dolphins, locker room, press conferences, that kind of deal when Saban was the coach. And I remember being in the press room, and it was a small press room at the time. And I remember being in the press room for one of those shouting matches he had, or, and it was with Jill Martin, formerly of NBC6.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, he was giving her a tongue lashing in the middle of one of these press conferences. Like, I was scared being in the room. It was
right.
So uncomfortable. I thought it was super inappropriate. He was crushing her. It was not very nice. Anyway, where do you think Belichick winds up?
I think we could see a situation if he still wants, control of player personnel. There's two logical landing spots, which would be Carolina and the Chargers. I don't know if he'd want to work for Tepper, after having the relationship with Robert Kraft that he's had for so long. That just seems like a volatile situation that he would like to avoid. But again, the money would certainly be there. The Chargers, if I'm Belichick at this point, I'm chasing Shula's record. I don't want to go through what I've been through the last couple of seasons after Brady retired. Like, to walk into Justin Herbert would be just fantastic. And knowing that there's good enough defensive players in place that I can put my stamp on that, and that defense turns around quickly, add a piece or two on the offense, have a good offensive coordinator. I think a lot of people expect Josh McDaniels to go with him if he goes somewhere, just because that relationship has worked out well for them. But yeah, if I'm Belichick, like, I don't want to see him, for example, as a fantasy guy, I don't want to see him in Atlanta, where he could, ruin those three guys that are just waiting for a better coach and better quarterback, in Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. So to me, the Chargers make a lot of sense if he wants to go on the West Coast. And let's be real, he could always say, I'm going to sit out for a year and then see if another job opens up that he really wants, because he has that luxury. It's not like a player, if you take a year off, you're done. If he wants to take a year, just relax and maybe do TV for a year, he can certainly get back into it even at his age.
Why did Tennessee fire Vrabel?
I think they just wanted to change. The stupid part of it is, if there was realistic trade potential for him, and not exploring that makes, absolutely no sense. But at some point, teams just sort of look at it and say, maybe we just need to hit the reset button. And Vrabel also could have said, he's tied to the Patriots organization, probably knew that this was the potential to happen, and he might want that job. He also could have said, I want to be out. We never know how these things may go when guys have been, tenured for a certain extent. I don't know if he has that type of luxury, but the things that you hear around the league is that Vrabel's a tough guy to deal with from a personnel standpoint. And so they've already moved on from one general manager, and Rand Carthon, the general manager who's there now, may not have just got along with him and said, look, it's either him or me. And the ownership might have said, okay, it's time to make a change. So that's a team that's definitely ready to rebuild. And, I think they thought that they can get by this season with maybe Tannehill coming back and one more year of Derrick Henry. And now Henry's gone. They got their young quarterback in place in Will Levis, and, try and see if they can get back into it quickly and have a quick turnaround like the Texans did.
All right, let's get to the games here, Jamey. We'll start out with the Dolphins and Chiefs daily fantasy. Who do we like here? And then what do the Dolphins need to do to win this game?
I think they need to run the ball, especially if Waddle does not play and Tyreek is banged up. And, knowing that the success of the Chiefs, defense really for the most part has been their secondary. L'Jarius Sneed, very underrated cornerback. He's locked down a lot of great number one guys and held Tyreek in check in that game in Germany. You're never going to shut down Tyreek Hill, but, held him in check. But I think if the Dolphins can run the ball, and clearly their run game has been successful, especially if Mostert does play, but even with Devon Achane, you control time of possession, you keep the Chiefs off the field. And that's been sort of the weakness of their defense. And you're taking pressure off of Tua. So typically what you see in snow games is offenses have the advantage because defensive guys have to chase them around and they're slipping just as much, but the offensive guy is at least dictating where he can go. So the Dolphins could certainly steal this game, but knowing how they played on the road, knowing how they played against tougher opponents and winning teams, you kind of give Kansas City the edge. And unfortunately, I think that's how it's going to work out. But Daly, this is not a game I think you want to play the passing games. Maybe Travis Kelce flips a switch and starts to look better in the postseason. The one thing would be is that the Dolphins are so beat up defensively, which is a big part of this, is that they're bringing in pass rushers off the street. I think they gave you a call while you're on your ski trip and you just didn't answer. But they're just so beat up defensively with getting to the quarterback and Xavier Howard probably looking like he's not going to play. So if this was a better weather condition game, Rashee Rice would be one of my favorite plays, but I would just try to avoid a lot of the pass catchers in this game.
Cleveland and Houston gets everything going on Saturday. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how CJ Stroud does against a defense that's been one of the best in the NFL. I think it'll be a little bit of a struggle for him. He has been better at home. Nico Collins has been an absolute stud all season long, but again, you're talking about a really good defense. So don't love a lot of the Texans. The one guy that I would be interested in is Dalton Schultz if Grant Delpit does not play. They've opened the window for him to come off of IR, but tight ends have really feasted on the Browns the last few weeks without Delpit there. So if he's back, Schultz I think has a tough game. I like a lot of the Browns. David Njoku has been a stud with Joe Flacco under center. Flacco has been fantastic. Fantasy points per game from a redraft perspective. He actually finished top 3 for just the 5 games that he played for the season. So he was a star, and I think we'll have a big game against the weakness right now of the Texans is their secondary. And then Amari Cooper has been a star with Flacco on the field. So love the setup for Flacco, for Cooper, and for Njoku. I've already built one DFS lineup, and that's the stack that I have is Flacco and Amari Cooper.
Sunday, everything gets going with Pittsburgh and Buffalo. I think we're going to see an energized Buffalo team, like a second life out of them almost. I don't think Pittsburgh keeps this game close. What do you like in it?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny. I was talking to a few Dolphins fans. I'm like, you guys got to be rooting for a tie right now, because that would have been the best case scenario. You would end up playing Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, I think, lucky to get in the playoffs, but losing TJ Watt is huge. Not having him there for this game. Mason Rudolph, I think, is, played a little bit over his head. And the Bills, like you said, I think they have the easiest path to the Super Bowl that I would see in the AFC because you get the Chiefs on the road. Mahomes hasn't played a road playoff game yet. And Lamar Jackson still has to prove himself. So if they win in their second round game, then to get to the AFC Championship game, even though they'll be at home, I think Buffalo could steal that game also. So, yeah, I think this is a big win for Buffalo. Love the setup for Josh Allen. Maybe Stephon Diggs can get things going a little bit, but he's tough to trust, but he's a good contrarian play. James Cook, I think, is a good contrarian play as well. He's been struggling a little bit the last few weeks. And then for the Steelers, if you're just looking at it from, where some guys can make some plays, Jaylen Warren has 4 catches, at least 4 catches in 5 straight games. So chasing points, most likely, from a PPR standpoint. So DraftKings is full PPR, FanDuel's half PPR. Jaylen Warren should be a good, cheap option at running back if you want to go that route. Packers
and Cowboys. I think this is going to be a close game. What do you like?
I think so also, but the Cowboys at home have just been so fantastic. And so Jordan Love has been really good in some tough spots, but this could be one where I think maybe it's okay, he's played great to this point, and then next year this is the next step, similar to Tua. Got to win one of these type of games. So I think Dallas wins, but love the setup for the Cowboys. Dak's been awesome, for the majority of the year, and certainly in his building. CeeDee Lamb is unstoppable right now. Jake Ferguson's a good play. I don't know if you want to play Tony Pollard. The Packers' run defense has been bad, but he's been bad as well. And then for Green Bay, look, Jaden Reed is, I say this a lot on our shows. He's baby Deebo Samuel. They use him as a rusher. He's caught the ball, to a high level. We'll see if Christian Watson plays. So there are some good, cheaper options for the Packers. And Aaron Jones has been very good for the last 3 weeks, especially with A.J. Dillon out. But it's tough to run on the Cowboys. So a lot of the DFS plays from a safe standpoint would be on the Dallas side. Some contrarian plays would be on the Packers side.
Rams and Lions, a lot of juice to this game because of Stafford and Goff. What do you like? And do you think there's pressure on Goff here?
There's pressure on both these guys. Clearly Stafford's got his Super Bowl, but he's got to prove that he can still do it. And they're actually, I was surprised when I saw this. They're 7-1 in their last 8 games, and the one loss was the walk-off punt return against the Ravens in Baltimore. So they've been great. The Lions, though, their run defense is tough. So if they can stop Kyren Williams and make Matthew Stafford have to throw, he certainly can. And the secondary has been bad for Detroit. But I just feel like this is the game that the Lions win, and then they probably lose next week in Dallas. In the rematch of the 2-point controversy. But I like the setup for both these teams from an offensive standpoint. The secondaries have been bad. Run defenses have been good. Detroit's missing a big piece. Sam Laporta not playing, I think, is going to be huge. So can they get a little bit more creative? And this is where Ben Johnson, proves that he's going to be this next hot head coach. Get creative with Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game. Get Goff, with some bootlegs and get him out of the pocket a little bit and get him with some plays down the field. So I like the setup for Lions a little bit better. But yes, both these teams can easily win. This game can go either way, and I like the setup for a lot of these offenses.
So finally here, Jamey, Monday night Super Wild Card weekend ends with the Eagles at the Buccaneers. I think this is the toughest game to measure of the weekend.
I think Tampa Bay wins it. The Eagles have just not played well. They're really limping into the playoffs. Defensively, they've been awful, and I know the Bucs haven't put up a lot of points lately. Beating the Panthers 9-0 wasn't exactly anything to write home about, but Baker's playing well. As long as he's healthy, I think he'll have an opportunity to make plays with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You could run on the Eagles, so I like the setup for Rachaad White. Would not be surprised if Philadelphia wins. It's clearly they're favored, but they just look awful at this point. Jalen Hurts, I think, is playing through a bad knee injury that is not necessarily getting talked up enough. The offensive line has struggled by comparison. They have no run game right now to speak of, at least anything of a success. And you got both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith banged up. So if their offense shows up and their defense makes some plays, they can certainly win this game. But, Tampa's defense has played much better of late, and I think Baker Mayfield has a better game than Jalen Hurts.
Awesome job, Jamey. Tell everybody how they can hear you leading up to all the Super Wildcard games this weekend.
Yeah, right now we're just going with our podcast. So check us out, cbssports.com. Fantasy Football Today is our podcast. You can find it wherever podcasts are available. You can find us on our YouTube page, and we'll have you covered. We'll still be doing some stuff on CBS Sports HQ, and I wrote a lot of stuff already for cbssports.com. Already starting to look ahead to 2024. So we have quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, top 24 rankings up to give people a taste of it already. And then if you do any of these playoff challenges or DFS, you can read about that on cbssports.com as well.
Great job, Jamey. Thank you, pal. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk next week.
You got it. Thank you.